All right, everybody, welcome to my predecessor guide for Morigesh. So in this video, I'll be showing the build that I use for when I'm playing Morigesh in the middle lane anyways, and I'll explain why I pick the items that I use and the crests that I use, and explain the tactics that I use as well. So before we get started, I want to just say that this is not a mid lane video. I do have a mid lane guide video that is on my channel that you can go find if you're looking for a guide on just playing mid lane. And I also want to say I'm going to be working on a video on showing you how to face Morgesh, but I'm having trouble getting footage facing a Morgesh because I keep playing mid lane. I never face a Morgesh. So I am working on trying to get footage of it. So bear with me on that. That it was someone requested that kind of guide. So I am working on that. Well, anyways, let's jump right into it. So the first decision that you're going to want to make is which crest to pick. So there are two different crests that work for Morgesh, and which one you pick will depend on the situation that you are in. The first one is the Magician crest, and I recommend getting this one if you're facing someone else that is ranged in the mid lane, and someone like Argus or Gadget or Faye. And once you get the crest fully leveled up, I suggest getting the Soul Bearer one. One of the things I really like about it is it adds the magical penetration and ability haste, which are really good for her in general. But the active effect is one I really like. And what it does is it gives you 25% shield. It gives you like an over shield that is 25% of your maximum mana, as well as 20% magical lifesteal and 10% movement speed for 8 seconds. So I'll get into why the 20% magical life steal is really big, as well as the movement speed. But having that shield can really save you in a fight, and like an extra 25% health and being able to move faster. It's really good for those situations where you get put in a spot where you need to have extra health and get away really fast. Having 10% movement speed can be really massive. The other crest that you can choose as well is the occult crest, which the reason that I like to grab this one is for the Tempest item. So if you don't know what Tempest does, what it does is when you use it, it'll do lightning damage to up to 3 people that are near you, doing 14% of your magical damage to them, and it heals you for the amount of damage that you do to those people. The reason I say which one you pick depends on the situation that you are in, is because if you're facing a ranged person, I think it's better to have the shield because they aren't going to be close enough to you for that lightning damage to be doing any good. But if you're facing someone like Countess in the middle lane, she'll come over to you and you can use your ability or your item, the Tempest item, to do that damage to her. So she's taking damage to you and you're healing as she's whacking on you with her swords. Overall, I'd say the Magician's Crest and the Soul Bearer item is much better. But if you feel like the situation calls for the Tempest item, then by all means grab that one. That one works as well. I just would suggest grabbing the Soul Bearer over that one. Okay, so before we jump into our first item, I'm going to explain the tactic that I like to use when I'm playing Morgesh. So normally ranged characters are really vulnerable to melee characters, and if they can cut them off and close the gap, it's pretty much over for that ranged character. But Morgesh has an ability that is pretty unique and can be really big for countering melee people if they are not paying attention. So in this clip, I'm using her E ability, which you can see she turns into like leaves and like grassy. And what it does is if she touches anybody, including minions, it does damage to them as well as life steal. So this can be really big, especially if a melee person is attacking you. If you mark the person as well, it does additional damage and life steal. So if you're getting jumped by a melee person, all you got to do is run over, hit them with your right click, which marks them as a target. And then you do 4 times more damage and life steal to that person. And if you hit that E ability and run into them, it takes a lot of their life away and gives it back to you. So any damage that they did in that time is being rediverted to them pretty much. And what it also does is it gives you a 20% movement speed and it upgrades. So that's 20% to the level 1, but it gets up to a little bit more than that. But the movement speed and life steal and damage is just really big. And if you're using the Soul Bearer as well as the E, your movement speed gets pretty insane and you're able to get away from fights really easily if you need to. So bearing with that strategy in mind, the first card that I pick builds upon that. So the first card I like to get is Life Binder, and I recommend getting Life Binder for any character that is primarily magical damage focused because it's really big. It adds 15% magical life steal, and it adds 1% for every 10% of health that you're missing. So the closer you are to death, the more life that you'll steal from them by using magical abilities. So with the strategy that I mentioned before, with the life steal from the E ability, adding this adds another 15% and more to that life steal, and it makes it really big. And a lot of melee people will come up to you, think that they have the advantage on you, and all of a sudden they do a ton of damage in the initial hit. They use all their abilities on you, and then you hit them with your E ability once you have this life binder item, and you steal about 40% of that damage from them going back to you. And so you heal yourself, but you're also taking all of their health away from them. And it's just really big to have. And a lot of people don't expect it to happen. Like I said, most melee people will go attack a ranged person and think that they have the easy kill, but they'll underestimate it. And if you even need to, like I said, the soul bearer item and your E ability makes your movement speed go up to almost 40% when combined. And you could hit them with this, give them the initial shock of, wow, their health just went up a lot and mine went down a lot, as well as being able to run away from that fight if you need to. All right, so moving on, the next card that I recommend getting is called Tainted Scepter. So again, I'm a broken record when it comes to tainted items, but what this does is it reduces the healing of the target that you're hitting by 40% for 4 seconds. And this kind of goes with our other strategy as well, because a lot of melee focused characters will have a lot of life steal. And if they're coming and hitting you up, you can use your abilities and hit them, and they won't be getting as much health from life steal. And like I say in all my videos, I suggest tainted items. Having the ability to reduce healing on the other team is really big. And I'll say this again, in any game that you play, having a team that has reducing a healing reducing abilities, they will win 9 times out of 10. And yeah, I won't go into it as much as I do on the other videos, but having this item is really big, and a lot of people don't realize it and they forget to get this item. And I'm not saying I'm perfect either. I'm guilty of forgetting to grab one of these as well, because I always try to pick different items and try to find new and better items as I play. So if you've ever played against a Morigesh and Predecessor, you'll know what her ult is. But just in case you don't, what her ult is, if she has someone marked, which is her right click ability, and she uses her ultimate, what it does is it pulls out a voodoo doll that you can see on her butt right there. And the voodoo doll I have right there is Sparrow. And what it does is she pulls it out and stabs it, and it does a bunch of damage. And usually it's used to finish someone off that got away. But I wanted to mention something real quick, just a strategy that I like to use with her is you see her low right there, and I go and I use all my abilities on her, get her low as I can, hit her with my knives, get her low as I can. And then here in a second, I use my ultimate, boom. Not enough, but that was a misjudgment on my part, but that's pretty much what her ultimate does. And I go over there and finish the job manually, but that is what her ultimate does. So the next 4 cards that we pick will build on using her ultimate and maximizing her ultimate out. So the first card that I recommend is called Megacosm. And what this card does is it adds ability haste, mana, and magical power. And it's a pretty good amount of magical power, so I really like it for that reason. But the thing that I like the most about it is that it deals 3% of the target's max health as damage over 3 seconds. And the additional ability is if they have bonus health for like a card or an ability or something, it does 5.5% of that damage as well. So essentially what this card does is it adds bleed damage. So you'll use your ultimate and hit them with it, and it'll do an additional 3% of their total health. So that just kind of builds on using your ultimate, and the rest of the cards we're going to pick will be building on that as well and adding more damage to that. So the next card that I recommend is called Noxia. So this card adds a bunch of magical power as well as ability haste, but the additional ability is it deals 5% of the target's maximum health as bonus damage. So the one downfall with this card is, though, in order to get that dark matter of the 5% extra target's maximum health damage, is you have to hit them with an ability, and then you have 3 seconds pretty much to hit him with the ult to get that a bonus damage. But if you use your ult and you're doing that huge amount of damage, it adds 5% more damage on top of that 3% that the other card adds as well. And we have more cards that we're going to add that add more to that. So the next card that we're going to get is called Wraith Leggings, and there's a couple of reasons I like this one. Is again, it adds a ton of magical power, and it also adds magical penetration. So if someone's getting armor, you'll be able to penetrate some of that armor a little bit. But it also adds 5% movement speed. So again, like I said, with that movement speed, getting away from a fight or getting into a fight, it can be really good. So I just like to have that 5% permanent movement speed as well. But it also adds, if someone is below 40%, your magical abilities will do 12% more magical damage. So this one isn't bleed damage necessarily as much as if someone's below 40% health and you're doing an additional 12% bonus damage to them, that can be really massive, especially once you are maxed out and you are doing that extra 8% bleed damage to them. Like, it just does significant amount of damage. And if you've ever like fought a Morigesh and you've had like half health and you thought you were fine, then she uses her ult and it just obliterates you, it's cards like this that are causing that, because they're doing additional bleed damage to you, and it's adding, they have cards that add percentage of magical damage, and it's just, her ult can be really broken if you get the right build with this character. So the last card that I'm going to recommend is called the Oblivion Crown. And this card's pretty straightforward. It does adds a ton of magical power, as well as increasing your overall magical power by 18%. And yeah, that is as OP as it sounds. So once you have your character maxed out, not only will you be doing the huge amount of damage that your ultimate does base on its base damage, you'll be doing 8% bleed damage if you time it right anyways with those cards, as well as doing 30% magical increased damage. And yeah, it's as broken as it sounds. Once you're maxed out, you should be able to take out most characters that when they're at half health with your ultimate, and your ultimate refreshes like pretty quick as well. So you should be massing out a bunch of kills and really frustrating a lot of people, having them smash their computers, you know, all that fun stuff. But yeah, Morigesh is really broken if done correctly. But I see a lot of times where the players who are playing her just don't use her in the right way. And yeah, so I wanted to make this guide just kind of showing the strategies that I use anyways. And again, I want to leave a disclosure just saying that this isn't the only way to play Morigesh. There is several hundreds of different ways that you can pick different variations of cards. You can have different strategies. This is just the basic one that I use. And again, you don't have to use this one. And if you have another strategy that you like to use, or like cards that you think I missed, or cards that are better than the ones I picked, let me know down in the comments. I'm always learning. I'm always picking different cards and like learning different strategies. But again, I won't be offended if you have a better suggestion than what I have here. But this guide is for people who are new players to Morigesh looking for a good build for her. So I want to thank you guys for watching if you made it this far, and let me know in the comments as well if you want to see any other kind of videos like guides or character builds or anything like that. I'm looking for video ideas, so I'd really appreciate that. Be sure to subscribe and like the video, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.